But first tonight, once upon a time, two of the world's great leaders met at 10 Downing Street. Sir Winston Churchill and Sir Robert Menzies met to discuss World War II strategy in London. Well, fast forward to 2025, it's now Albo and Keir at 10 Downing Street. Gee, talk about a downgrade. Brothers in arms, two lefty mates on an unhinged pathway to implement a woke brand of politics. And I think the messaging in Anthony Albanese's speeches, which he delivered in the UK over the weekend, should worry all of us. And I'll explain why in a moment. But the PM is about to return home from a week and a half overseas and has morphed into a poster boy for progressives, serving his own interests, not those of this country, on what was clearly a politically driven trip to shore up Labor's interests. I mean, all it took was a 4-pack of Albo's pale ale, which he made sure all of the cameras took a photo of ahead of his meeting with his UK counterpart. And then he was welcomed like a hero by Sir Keir at a left-wing gaggle fest, then later at the Labor Party conference in Liverpool, on the taxpayer dollar, by the way, where he was a keynote speaker.
It is an absolute privilege to introduce a friend of mine, a real inspiration to those of us on the left. Albo came armed with cans of Albo beer. I kid you not.
That's all it took. Well, you know as well you've been given the kiss of death when Keir Starmer calls you an inspiration to the left. And of course, Australian Labor and UK Labor have a lot in common. A mass migration policy, a failure to secure the borders, a net zero 2050 fantasy accompanied by a renewables only approach. Both have, in the last week, recognised Palestine. Both have certainly failed to do enough to protect the Jewish community. And through this, the social fabrics of both countries are fracturing. So it's little wonder Keir Starmer is now the UK's least popular Prime Minister of all time. And if an election were held tomorrow, UK Reform leader Nigel Farage would win with a staggering 373 seats, handing Reform a Commons majority of 96. That is bigger than Boris Johnson's 2019 landslide. Labor would actually sink to 90 seats, the Tories absolutely dismal on 41. And it's clear the mood of the nation is changing. And despite this, what has emerged from the weekend is Labor here and Labor there have their blinkers on and seem to be on this unity ticket of sorts to demonise the right.
It's been a particular pleasure to welcome Albo to our country at the Global Progressives Conference on Friday as a key partner in standing up to the divisive politics of the right.
The key word there, divisive politics. Now have a listen to Anthony Albanese.
We all sense this is an era where our capacity for peaceful disagreement is being tested. Tearing things down is easy, but it doesn't leave you with anything. The low politics of fear and resentment are easy, but they only divide the country, they don't advance it.
Key word there, divide the country. Now, what he and Keir Starmer are referring to are policies like those being driven by Reform UK and, for example, One Nation here in Australia. And we are talking about policy issues that you at home are rightly worried about. And it all stems from the debate around migration. In fact, the Prime Minister has gone as far as to warn about the rise of populist parties.
The politics of grievance, of course, are always easy. It's easier to tear things down than it is to build them up. The truth is that around the world, people want, including in Australia, people want borders to be controlled. They want control over their migration system.
But the reality is Labor has not controlled the migration system, and we are all feeling the consequences. It has brought in more than 1.1 million migrants into this country as part of its Big Australia policy. migration remains double pre-pandemic levels. In fact, net overseas migration for the March quarter was just over 110,000. That is 1,223 arrivals each and every day between the start of the year and the end of March. Where are we going to put all these people? And this is not divisive. This is just stating pure facts. Now, this follows Albo's attendance at a left-wing global summit on Friday, where he met with Democrat presidential candidates and former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern to discuss how progressives could push these policies across the Western world.
I think there are attempts by some on the far right to own nationalism, and so it's a matter of not being nativist about it, but being proud of it.
Well, what is wrong with nationalism? And this is the language that I think should worry all of us. Left-wing governments have become all too trigger-happy to roll out the phrase far right when confronting issues that impact all of us. It is not far right to be proud of your country. It's certainly not far right to have a conversation about mass migration, particularly when our housing and infrastructure is already under pressure. It's not far right to have a conversation when everyday Aussies are locked out of the housing market, the great Aussie dream is out of reach for many and rents are up. And it's not far right to have a conversation when the face of Australia has changed, our social cohesion is fracturing, and it gets palmed off as healthy and sustainable multiculturalism. It's just not. In fact, Keir Starmer went as far this weekend as to call Reform's policy to crack down on migration as racist.
I do think that it is a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
Well, it's gone down like a lead balloon. Have a look at the front page of the UK's Daily Mail today. Worried about immigration? Starmer says, you're racist. So the brothers in arms, Albo and Keir, are tying themselves in knots over an issue which is not at all controversial. Rather, it's mainstream, something everyday Aussies are worried about. Yet apparently the two of them plan to work together to get this: defend democracy.
But what I see here in UK Labor, under this man, this leader, this Prime Minister, my friend, is the same determination that I know lives in every member of the Australian Labor Party. An absolute resolve to stand together and defend democracy itself.
His mission is to defend democracy? I mean, if it weren't so serious, you'd actually have to laugh at the very prospect. How can he profess his mission is to defend democracy when he's gone to the United Nations this week to recognise a Palestinian state and gone against an actual democracy in Israel? And his conditions, by the way, include assurances from the undemocratic leader of the Palestinian Authority run by Mahmoud Abbas, a man elected on a 4-year term in 2005. No election was held 4 years later. And guess what? The man's still there 20 years later. Is that Albo's big version of democracy in action on the world stage? Because I would say it's actually the complete opposite. And look, the question has to be asked, why is the Prime Minister getting involved in the domestic politics of another country while on a taxpayer-funded trip? And as I said, this was a purely politically driven trip to shore up Labor's interests and to boost Team Albo on the world stage. Labor was desperately ducking and weaving today.
It's entirely appropriate for the Prime Minister to take the opportunity to meet with the Prime Minister of the UK, the King, the Leader of the Opposition in the UK, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Prime Minister of Spain. That strikes me as a very good use of the Prime Minister's time.
Yeah, and the Opposition Leader Susan Lee is rightly asking questions.
The Prime Minister crossed a line by attending a UK Labor Party conference. In fact, he didn't just cross a line, he flew to the other side of the world to give a partisan political speech on behalf of a political party in another country. That is totally unacceptable. Australians would be disappointed in their Prime Minister for doing just this.
Well, it sets up a showdown now ahead of Anthony Albanese's long-awaited meeting with Donald Trump next month. Albo has made his foreign policy platform clearer than ever on the world stage in the last week and a half. And we could not be more at odds with the United States on all issues, from migration to net zero to Israel and Palestine to woke policies driven by left-wing ideology. The message is very clear. Albo is a progressive poster boy. He's not out there saving democracy. He's out there doing whatever the heck he wants because he can, no matter how weak he is. And right now, Australia is following the lead of the United Kingdom under Labor. He and Keir are two peas in a pod, and that is dangerous.